Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Formula One. I'm your host, Jamie. I'm here with my sister, Jack.
Hi, everybody.
And what a weekend we had in Brazil.
Did you have a good birthday, Jamie?
I did. I had a fabulous birthday, except a few things happened during the race that we will get into that put a damper, for sure.
Yeah.
But beyond that, had a fabulous weekend, fabulous birthday. I have a frontal lobe fully developed now, except someone told me that apparently that's still 26. So maybe my brain is still cooking. I'm not really sure.
It might still be cooking. How's the bed making situation? Are you doing
Currently
it yet?
unmade. Currently
So
unmade.
maybe it is 26.
It's probably 26. Yeah, that's what it is.
That would make sense though, because you're off, parents' insurance, 26, you get pushed off. Or like your frontal lobe is ready to make
Yeah,
insurance decisions.
yeah. That would, yeah, I think that tracks. That's probably why they made that choice.
That's what
That would
it,
make
hopefully. We'll see.
But yeah, shall we jump right into the chaos-filled weekend that was the 2023 Brazil Grand Prix?
Brazil never disappoints.
No.
And it definitely brought the chaos this year.
Yeah,
On
and
Friday,
it
the
started,
first on
yeah,
Friday.
started right away. Friday quali was like starting to look a little cloudy. And then Q3 began, and they were like, we're estimating rain about 7 minutes into the session. But the way that the sky, it turned to night.
It was so dark. It was
It
nighttime.
got pitch black. Crazy. And then the sky just
Yeah.
opened, and it was just pouring.
It was monsooning, pelting down. George Russell took it upon himself to provide the photography that we all needed and wanted. I say that, some people are like, oh, rom-com, it's giving rom-com. I think it was giving Step Up to the Streets.
I would
Remember that
agree.
famous?
I saw
Yeah.
those videos or those pictures that he posted, and I was like, did you make a photographer go out in the rain with you to take this? I mean, respect anything for the Insta, right? But what was the context of this photo? And we'll post
Could you
it
imagine?
if you've
Yeah.
seen it.
Could you imagine it's his girlfriend? He's just like, this would be such a good idea. Like, let me cook.
Respect. I mean, he is a meme, and I feel like he leans into it. And
Did
respect
you
to
see him at the
George.
driver parade? Which this is jumping ahead a couple of days, but did you see him at the driver parade
Yes,
once
the
again?
clip where he just like kind of drives into the through the front.
Which isn't his fault. He's not driving, but he's just he knows his angles.
Yeah. Sue him. He knows his angles. Sue him.
Yeah, sue him. He knows what
But
works.
in between George Russell's rainy photo shoot, they did red flag Q3, which left us with a pretty interesting starting grid for Sunday. P1, Max, P2, Charles, but P3, Lance Stroll, and P4, Fernando Alonso. So a second row lockout for Aston Martin.
Which I believe, I know Lance before this had quite a few Q1, getting out in Q1. I think even Fernando did in Austin, maybe in Mexico.
Yeah. So a
So
great
go from
start to
that.
the weekend.
Yeah, great start for the weekend for Aston Martin. It was crazy. It didn't feel real, honestly.
I was texting you, and so they, rain starts, they red flag and then yellow flag the session, or yellow flag and then red flag the session, and they're like, we're not going to continue, it's over. And I just turned the TV off. I was like, are you kidding? And I was like, I know there's nothing that can be done about this, right? But, ugh. And I was happy for Lance, but it was, the starting grid was then affected by, teams that held their cars longer, like McLaren, hadn't sent their cars out early enough. It had already started raining, so they
Mm.
really didn't get much of a lap time in. But did make for a pretty interesting start to the weekend.
Yeah. I kind of just wish it was, if you know you're gonna really, I mean, I guess it also is no one's like, like it's not the FIA stepping in being like, we're gonna mess up the grid. So it's like interesting. It's like the weather, it's not controllable. But like, if you're gonna mess up the starting grid on Sunday, really mess it up. Make Max 10th. Like, push him back. Don't do like a normal Max Charles, then Lance Fernando. Like,
Yeah, like
make
then
Lance
the
first.
interesting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
give Lance pole.
yeah,
Make
that
it
would have been
real
epic.
interesting.
I would have
Come
left
on.
the TV on if that happened.
Yeah, 100%. But so yeah, to just have like the couple random here and there placements was, yeah, it was disappointing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then we headed into Saturday, which was again full of events. Again, it was a sprint weekend, so we had sprint
Mhm.
shootout and the sprint race both on Saturday.
Yep.
Sprint shootout started with a bang, quite literally. With
Mm.
Esteban Ocon had quite a serious crash in SQ1. Also made contact with Fernando, pretty severely damaged Fernando's car. Luckily, both were okay.
Yeah.
But that obviously ended Esteban's day and also ended Fernando's qualifying just because the car was so damaged.
Yeah.
But that was a weird, like he just
And
kind of
then
lost. Yeah.
blamed Fernando and called him an idiot. And was like, and
Yeah.
then doubled down on it when asked about it, when he was in the pen. And I was just like, as the bestie, like
Had he had a
as
chance to
Michaela
review,
would say.
yeah. Had he had a
I
chance to
mean,
review the footage at that point?
I think so. Maybe not. Maybe not. But I don't know, like,
Because I will say I think it was like maybe teetering. I don't think it was Fernando's fault, but he was slightly in the way. I could see Esteban's perception being that, it was Fernando being in the way that kind of distracted him, made him lose the rear of the car.
mm,
But then I think upon further review, you would see that that really wasn't the case.
yeah, because like when I was watching it back, yeah, he Fernando's wasn't racing. He was doing, I think, like a cool down lap or an out lap or something. Um, but you could see uh Esteban understeered.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was like, it's not Fernando's fault, but I don't know.
But
Maybe he didn't have a chance to fully review it, and see that. I'm sure
yeah,
that they're fine. They're they were old teammates at one point, or no, am I making that up?
they were, well, yeah, last year they were teammates at
Yeah,
Alpine. They didn't leave on great terms, to my knowledge, based on the
yeah,
things that were said in the media. But I'm sure it's okay. I'm sure it's all good. Um, and
yeah.
sprint qualifying, the excitement continued when we got a Lando Norris pole.
The first one since like 2021, right? From
Yeah,
Sochi? Yeah. Thrilled. Lando, which I think Martin Brundle had like a little bit of a talking to with him, was like, just stop being so hard on yourself. Just because that's honestly, I think that's what's holding him back. Obviously, not by like necessarily winning a race because he's competing against Max in a phenomenal car, but you're doing great, sweetie. You're doing great.
yeah. I mean, think about where they were at the start of the season, where they were the ones getting the Q1 exits, and they were so far off the pace. For him to now be, disappointed in a second place finish, like that is epic.
It's crazy.
Epic turn. Yeah.
Crazy turnaround.
So then, we got to the sprint later that afternoon. Even though we had a Lando pole, Max won. Shocking.
Max pulled away pretty quickly. Not pulled away, I shouldn't say, but he got into first place pretty quick. Even though Lando, which he has struggled with in the past of having a good reaction on the starts, he had a really good start. But the Red Bull is just, it's quick.
Unbeatable. Then we got to Sunday, my birthday. And I settled in to watch the race. It's my birthday. It's like, this is great. Charles Leclerc starting second. Carlos is not starting as high up as I'd like him to, but it's all good. We're living it up. Formation lap begins. I look up. Charles Leclerc is in the barriers on the formation lap. So essentially what happened, from what I can see, like from looking online, because he said on the radio when it happened that he'd lost the hydraulics. And from the reports that I can find, the engine detected like an unknown frequency, which then the fail safe there is to shut down the car immediately, because the other option there, if it's a dangerous frequency, is that the engine explodes. So that was detected, car immediately shuts off, which then, he doesn't have power steering, he doesn't have an engine, car's off, which sent him into the barriers. So while it's very upsetting, very thankful that systems like that are in place.
Yeah.
They have said that they won't be replacing his engine for Vegas. They said they were able to replace the parts that needed to be replaced without having to take a whole new engine, which means Charles Leclerc doesn't have to take an engine penalty, but does concern me.
Yeah. And it's different than because Carlos has had issues with his engine too. Are they separate issues?
Sounds like, yeah, different stuff.
Okay.
Carlos during this race was complaining about his clutch, which obviously is not, that's a different part than the engine. But yeah, it sounds like this was a completely unique situation. There were also other Ferrari engine issues at this race, not necessarily with the Ferrari team. We'll get into those later. And I don't believe that those were related to what happened with Charles either. I think this was, just fringe case, perfect storm of problems. But then, so Charles Leclerc did not start the Brazil Grand Prix. I am not completely clear on if it counts as a DNF or a DNS. Because depending on the reports that I saw, people were calling it different things. I think we're splitting hairs to really think about that.
Yeah.
But
he already has his trifecta. We don't need to go through that.
And then, so, they clear that, they reset the barriers, get the car out of the way, and start the race. And it is not long until we get another red flag. What happened with this at the start was Alex Albon had a fantastic start, went to the outside of Nico Hülkenberg, who was to the outside already of Kevin Magnussen, resulted in a sandwich as Nico Hülkenberg, who had nowhere to go, tried to pull out of the sandwich. He and Alex Albon made contact, which sent him into Kevin Magnussen, making contact, ending both of their races, Kevin and Alex Albon. And also creating a loose tire situation.
Yeah.
Where a tire came off of one of the cars. It was sent flying into the air, and just in the Honey Badger's luck, landed square on top of Daniel Ricciardo's rear wing.
And also
caused damage for Oscar. Yeah. Caused rear wing and I think floor damage for Oscar. So red flag the race. Obviously, there was a lot of debris, and that's right at the start. So while the race is red flagged and the track marshals are clearing the debris, resetting the barriers, all of that. Also, Alex and K-Mag were both okay. The AlphaTauri and McLaren teams deserve 100 medals for managing to get those cars back and ready to go.
Spectacular job. Because
So,
you would think that they literally thought both of those cars were out of the race.
yeah. I mean, that was on, if you were like watching live, like the commentary was like, their whole rear wing is broken. Oscar needed a whole new floor. I'm not positive about what else Daniel needed, but they were able to completely repair the cars and get them ready to go. However, because they'd worked on the cars, the FIA made them start from the pit lane because it was a standing restart, and they ended up both a lap down.
Yeah, I have beef about that.
Yeah. Did you see Daniel's sector times?
Both of them did incredible races, but you start them from a lap down. Are you crazy?
Like Daniel was like only up to like within a few tenths of max in I think like sector 1 and sector 2. He was a little further back in sector 3, but like we were robbed of a Daniel Ricciardo masterclass and of a great race from Oscar based on his sector times.
They were just having a race between themselves. Like you have this amazing thing that these mechanics and this entire team are able to do, fixing this car that should not be back on the track. And you're going to then be like, great job, pat on the back. You guys are starting a lap down.
Made me so
Good
angry.
luck.
So upsetting.
It just so like, yeah. And you could tell with all the interviews, like Daniel was really upset about it. I'm still upset about it. I'm gonna be fighting with them about this for a while, I think.
Yeah. But that was not the last of the excitement. Mercedes had quite the rough race. It's a tongue twister. George Russell DNF'd due to oil temps. The oil in his car was getting too hot.
Which is crazy. I can't remember the last time I heard that.
I don't know. When they said it, I was like, what? That's scary.
Yeah.
It's like we already had one engine almost blow up with Charles Leclerc. Let's not have another situation. Yeah. Retire the car, please.
Yeah.
And then both Alfa Romeos also DNF'd due to technical failures, this is what I was referring to earlier. Alfa Romeo uses a Ferrari engine. So there was like some talk of like both of these cars are Ferrari engines. We still at that point weren't super clear on what happened with Charles. We've now kind of figured out unrelated. But yeah, bad weekend or bad race for Alfa Romeo for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, not great. Yeah. Especially when they're tied. Are they tied with Williams now in the constructors? I'm trying to think of the constructors.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, they're higher up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean every point matters, right?
Yeah.
Especially in like that 7th through 10th. That battle is pretty close, so definitely a tough weekend for them. But the race ended pretty excitingly with that fantastic battle between Checo and Fernando.
Yeah. Did you, looking just at the race, the way you're watching it, who did you see coming first? Because from the way I watched, I was like, how did Fernando get first? But obviously it was just, I think, the angle of the camera.
Yeah, I thought it was Checo. But yeah, for context, so in the last 5-ish, maybe less laps of the race, Checo and Fernando were like neck and neck battling it out, and Alonso on the last-ish lap was able to overtake Checo, but on the last straight headed to the checkered flag, they were right next to each other. It was literally a photo finish, and Fernando Alonso prevailed and ended up P3. Congratulations.
Haven't had those in a second.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Haven't seen him. Yeah. Haven't seen a photo finish, and I feel like, a minute. And then Fernando has not been on that podium in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. So very exciting end to the race. So results were Max won, obviously. And then Lando Norris second, Fernando third, and Max continues to break records with this being his 17th win of the season.
Crazy.
I mean, it's an all-timer. I mean, every race now, we're at the point where every race he's just breaking records. I mean, this record is just the previous record holder was him in Mexico with 16. So, I mean, he's just in a league of his own, clearly.
And then I think he broke something else, but I don't remember what.
It was
They
something
said
about
it like over the Red Bull. Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Percentage per season, like a percentage of available points or something. But I would have to look it up to get the real stat. But he did break another record as well. Yeah.
Crazy.
So, exciting weekend overall, even though we did have Max, topping the charts in every session, we still had lots of excitement going on, which is not shocking for Brazil. We both love Brazil because it is a track full of excitement. You never know what's going to happen. And there have been some very, very famous races at this track. I'd love to take you through a few of them, 4 of them, I think.
We're going to go on a little Brazil journey.
A little journey through the years. So sources for today's episode are skysports.com, Senna.com, F1i.com, and the classic, our old friend, Wikipedia.
Gotta love Wikipedia.
So I will offer you, Jack, a choose your own adventure style. Would you like me to start from the most recent or from the least recent, the oldest one?
Ooh, let's go least recent first.
Start with least recent?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jax, we're going to go back on a journey to 1991. We were not alive then, but let's pretend.
We were not alive.
And so the 1991 Brazil Grand Prix, it is Ayrton Senna's home race. It is his 8th season in Formula One. And he had won the Drivers' Championship twice at this point, yet had never won his home race of Brazil.
That's so tragic.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh.
But the 1991 Brazil weekend, things are starting immediately to look up. He qualified on pole. It's like, perfect. But this is Brazil, and nothing is ever that simple. So on around lap 65, the gearbox on his McLaren jammed, and eventually he was only able to use 6th gear.
Oh my God. He could only use 6.
Yes.
Is that what this reason? And oh my God.
Only 6th gear. And essentially this would be like the physical toll that this takes on you is someone on Quora equated it to trying to drive a tank around at F1 speeds. Like you have to like physically muscle the car through turns. And Interlagos, highly technical track.
Yeah.
So most drivers here would retire the car, right? Virtually undrivable. Your gearbox is out. Not Senna. He drove the car the rest of the race like this in 6th gear, winning the 1991 Brazil Grand Prix. He was so exhausted at the end of this that he needed to be lifted from the car, like he couldn't get out. And then if you see in pictures, like he could barely lift the trophy. He was so exhausted, but he said in interviews that, any other race, maybe I would have retired the car, but my home race, my home fans drove him to victory. Isn't that crazy?
That's such a good story.
Yeah.
I love that one.
True story of just raw, pure perseverance and determination.
Yeah. Oh my
Like,
God.
I could not imagine muscling that car around and maintaining
Yeah.
the lead. It's one thing maybe to keep going, but maintaining a lead while having
Yeah,
to
to
deal with that.
win. That's crazy. So, yeah, he's literally putting all of his, like, as much, I guess, as you can move in that car, all of his body into that. God, that must have been like Qatar on steroids.
Oh yeah, on steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the next we're gonna do a little jump for the next one. I'm
Okay.
gonna take you to one of our favorite years that we've discussed so many times on this podcast, 2008.
We love a dirty air
Yeah.
revisit.
So in 2008, the Brazil Grand Prix was the final race of the season. And heading into this race, there was a pretty tight title battle between Lewis Hamilton and Felipe Massa, as discussed previously. So in order for Felipe Massa, this was his home race, he's from Brazil. In order for him to win the championship, he had to win the race, and Lewis had to finish 6th or lower. So,
Okay.
very difficult, not necessarily impossible.
Yeah.
And things are they're looking Massa's way when he wins the race in extremely dominant fashion. Sold, like the crowd goes wild. They think he's done it. Especially when Sebastian Vettel overtook Lewis Hamilton for 5th place, putting Lewis in 6th, which means he's done it. He's won the championship. Timo Glock from Toyota follows and also overtakes Lewis Hamilton. However, as we know, Brazil, Interlagos, some chaotic weather situations.
Yeah.
And in the closing laps of the race, rain arrives. Timo Glock, who's still on dry tires and is ahead of Lewis Hamilton at this point, is slowing down. In the last corner of the last lap, Lewis Hamilton overtakes Timo Glock for 5th place and takes the championship. Yeah.
Could you imagine winning? I mean, yeah, like that's spectacular fashion, right? Because he had to come back. Could you imagine winning a title from like 5th? It's just not as satisfying.
I mean, if you look at the clips of Lewis winning this championship, I would say he looks pretty satisfied.
No, I mean, like this one's definitely separate, right? But like any other race, I'd be like, yeah. Like probably like, I mean, maybe not. Maybe I'm just overthinking it because Max seemed pretty
I think,
satisfied when he won it during the sprint.
yeah, I think you're pretty satisfied regardless. But yeah,
Yeah.
so there's some famous pictures, obviously, of this where Felipe Massa won his home race, but also just narrowly missed out on the championship and had done everything he could at that point, right? Like he had to
Yeah.
win the race and he did it. So the pictures of him on the podium standing, very stoically, having just lost the championship, and then Lewis down below, because Lewis obviously wasn't on the podium, celebrating with McLaren his first ever driver's championship.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, because
Wild
that's
images.
what's you have to then you're right, he did everything that he could have, and then he's just relying on someone else to do worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. God. That sucks. But
Crazy.
also, I love when Lewis won that championship.
Yeah, I mean, this 2008 championship has been coming up a lot recently, so
Yeah.
who knows? But now I will take you to 2012.
Great year.
Great year. Once again, Brazil is the last race of the season. This time,
Honestly, as it should be.
yeah,
It should.
that's an exciting last race.
Yeah. I mean, Abu Dhabi, it's a night race, so it's really fun, but
Yeah.
Brazil is Brazil.
I also think, these races we talk about because this one also is, a title battle that's gone to the last race.
Mm,
I think any track's going to be exciting when you have a title battle
yeah.
going to the last race. And, maybe it's good to spread the wealth and keep, Interlagos is an exciting track. Maybe, keep it
Gotta, yeah.
earlier in
Yeah.
the season.
Spread the wealth.
Um, but yes, so this title battle was between Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso. Coming into this race, Seb is leading by 13 points. This would be his third drivers' championship title. And all is looking good. Qualifies on pole, great, 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 until the race begins. And he has contact with Bruno Senna, Ayrton's nephew, at turn 1, which turns him around. Luckily, he's able to keep going, but now he's in last at this race. And to make matters worse for Sebastian Vettel, at this time, Fernando Alonso then overtakes his teammate, Felipe Massa, and Seb's teammate, Mark Webber, for third. So now Seb is in last, Alonso is in third. And remember, only 13 points separate them.
Yeah.
Somehow, by whatever magic is in Sebastian Vettel's blood and whatever magic was in that 2012 Red Bull, by lap 8, Seb is up to 8th.
By lap 8? Oh, wow.
So things are starting to, kind of swing back more into Seb's direction, right? He's already up into 8th. Then our two besties, Lewis and Nico Rosberg, collide, moving Fernando Alonso up to 2nd place. So it's looking like it's Fernando, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Until Sebastian Vettel, at the end of the race, overtakes his hero, his mentor, Mr. Michael Schumacher, putting him placing high enough to secure his 3rd world championship.
That's crazy.
And like in 2008, some of the most famous pictures from this weekend are actually the pictures of Fernando realizing that Seb had just overtaken Michael and that he had not won the championship. Like, it's crazy, these stories. I mean, you think from the perspective of the winner, this is epic. But from the perspective of the loser, this is gut-wrenching.
Yeah. And then you also have to go up there and celebrate on a podium.
Yeah, and then you have to go be on the podium.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Is it bad that I always put Michael Schumacher? For some reason, I'm like, oh, 20 years ago he was racing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
so
know
this was
why I
in his
always
era
do.
where he had that brief stint where he came back and raced at Mercedes. This era.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
he raced with Seb for a brief period of time. But yeah, it is. It's like, I think you just think of him as the greats. I don't know. Think
Yeah.
back to years and years ago, but no, it was not that long ago. This is similar to, remember how we were feeling when we were talking about the 2005 US Grand Prix? And we were like, oh, it's
Yeah.
crazy to talk about like how Fernando was there and Jensen was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I need to really get a timeline of Michael Schumacher, honestly, because I always just keep pushing him back. I'm like, oh yeah, that was so long ago.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not.
Twas not. Twas not. Twas not.
Twas not.
And the last race that I will take you through for today. There are plenty more, Very exciting Brazil races. Max had an incredible race in Brazil. Lots of famous moments. George this past year, last year, 2022, had his first win in Brazil.
Yeah.
But the last one that we'll deep dive on, that we'll focus on for today, is 2021. A very
good year.
Yeah. So, as we all know, there was a furious title battle going on in 2021 between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. And unlike, obviously, as we know, again, Abu Dhabi was the last race of the season. So Brazil was not the last race of the season. However, coming into Brazil, Lewis seriously needs to win this race to keep his title defense up. Like, the battle is razor thin at this point. So all, again, going well, going great. Lewis qualifies on pole. It is never that easy, though, is it? Or we wouldn't be talking about it.
Not in Brazil.
So after qualifying, the FIA determines that Lewis's rear wing was broken and his DRS had opened 0.2 millimeters wider than allowed. Therefore, they disqualified him from quali, sent him to P20. This was a sprint weekend, though, and this was the old format of sprints. So if you remember, the old format of sprints was you do your normal quali, that sets the grid for the sprint, then you do the sprint, the result of the sprint sets the grid for the race. Are you with me?
Yeah, arguably the best way to do it, because I don't know why they ever messed with the format, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we need reverse grids.
Or reverse, yeah. If that's how you want to mess with it, that's the only way to mess with it, is with a reverse grid.
So now, after this disqualification, Lewis is starting the sprint in P20. He also already had taken I don't know if he'd already taken it or if it was decided after, but he had a 5-place grid penalty for the race. For, I think it was like an engine change or something, like one of those, like a mechanical one.
Yeah.
So he starts the sprint in P20, ends up finishing P5 in a sprint.
Jesus.
Yeah. Which is crazy, because I think I would assume, honestly, Max would probably do like a similar thing now.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to just look back at those numbers and see that.
Yeah. Well,
25 in a third of a length of a race.
Yeah, that's what's even crazier is, like you were just saying with Seb, doing that in 8 laps. Crazy.
Insane. So that means with his grid penalty that he is starting the race in P10.
Okay.
Obviously, again, he needs to win this race to keep the title fight going. Starts P10. Very dramatically, pretty easily makes it through most of the field, but his final person he has to pass to win is Max Verstappen. Both of them aggressive defenders.
Yep.
If you've ever watched them race each other, they race each other hard. So Lewis manages to get around Max and win the race after starting P20 at the beginning of the weekend.
Crazy.
Yeah. And becoming, then obviously in front of his, not actual home crowd, but he's very beloved in Brazil. And he wins.
God, he must have been in cloud 9.
Yeah.
I need to rewatch season 5 of Drive to Survive now that we're talking about 2021.
Yeah.
You go back
When
and
does the
watch it
next
again.
season come out? Does it come out in the off season?
I think the last one came out in like January. Ooh, maybe not. I don't
I
know.
do not remember. Feels like a million years ago.
It feels like a long time ago.
Oh, also something that we forgot to address in the race recap. Yes, my tinfoil hat time was incorrect. I thought
We
I'd
were
cracked
rooting
the
for it.
code. I thought I'd cracked the code and that Lewis was going to win. I was incorrect. I apologize. But yeah, that's what I got for you today. If you have a favorite Brazil race, favorite Brazil moment, let us know.
Yeah.
Love to chat more about Brazil. Great race. Lots and lots and lots of iconic moments have happened at Brazil. So
And it's staying on the grid until 2030, they announced.
yes,
So as it should,
yes.
as it should. As
So exciting.
yeah. So excited to see more moments like these to come.
Yeah. Yes. So we will talk to you soon. In the meantime, make sure you follow us on socials at Famula One. Check us out on YouTube if you haven't yet. Perfect timing. We have brand new graphics.
Yeah, they're
Brand new,
super
beautiful
sick.
background. Yeah. So
They're
thank you very much to
incredible.
our graphic design fearless leader, our head of design, Sarah. She's the best.
Our guru.
And yeah, and we will be talking to you next week. But we will not, if there's any news that comes out, we'll talk to you at some other point beyond the episode because it's going to be a pre-recorded episode. A very exciting one though. We have a very special guest that we think you'll enjoy hearing from. So be sure to tune into that. And yeah, no race this weekend. So get some sleep, prep for Vegas. We'll talk to you next week. Love you. Bye.
Bye, guys.